Every day, you wake up as your own boss, making your own way. Every day, you continue your journey to change the world, your team, and yourself. Every day, you encourage, congratulate, celebrate, and reach toward your goal of being the best and providing the best. The Build Your Best Business Show is for you. The real stories of building a business from other owners and founders along the journey. Find the support and advice you need to successfully start, grow, manage, and exit your business. What are you going to do today to build your best business?
Welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and exit a business? Today, we're talking with Dennis Eidson. He is the owner of Honest1 Auto Care of Roswell, along with a couple of other things, and focuses in the category of franchises, which is a really interesting place if you're thinking about going off and starting your own thing, but you don't want to necessarily come up with your own idea and you want sort of a way to get there. So, Dennis, tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, we auto repair shop in Roswell. We've been open for about 6.5 years. Based on what I know and people I talk to, and I think we're one of the larger, more successful, growing auto repair shops, certainly in Roswell and even Metro Atlanta. So we've done real well. But it's taken us 6.5 years to get to where we're at. So.
Oh yeah. So did you talk about getting into this as a business? Because 6.5 years ago, you seemed like that probably wasn't right out of college.
Oh no, it was. I just look older than I am. So, no, about 7 years ago, right around this time, I had been in corporate America for 25 years. I'd been with the same company for 18 years. I was a VP of client service, making pretty good money and pretty good bonuses. And I tell people that I kept hitting the snooze button on the alarm clock every morning because I hated getting out of bed. I hated going to work.
Yeah.
So I just started to look for a business to buy, and I had a kind of a blank sheet of paper. I was looking at any kind of business to buy, and so got connected with a coach from the Entrepreneur Source, and she did a very thorough process with me to get to know me and figure out what made me tick, and from there, she recommended Honest1 Auto Care and a couple other options as well. So
yeah, and I've had people from Entrepreneur Source on before, so talk a little bit about that process because they may not know. And it's sort of almost a misleading name, right? Because when you think of entrepreneur, you think of someone who goes out and comes up with their own idea, but they help to match you.
Yeah, that's exact. I mean, they do. I think probably 90 or 95% of their business is to take people who think they want to own a business. And help them determine if that's the right path for them to go down.
Yeah.
And so the 95% of the business is to match people to existing franchise organizations that meet their lifestyle goals, income goals, et cetera. So for me, it was kind of frustrating. I actually met this woman on the internet. I mean, I filled out a form, and all of a sudden, this woman from New Hampshire was calling me.
Oh wow! Okay.
So she's a coach. They call them coaches, and I got a little frustrated with her because she did lots of interviewing with me and disc profiling and testing. And, at the time I was frustrated, but what I realized is she was doing a very good job getting to know who I was and what made me tick. It was probably a 2-week process, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. And she said there was 2 characteristics that came out about me that helped her decide which way she wanted to guide me. And number one was all about customer service. I mean, when I was in high school and college, I was a waiter. Then I spent 6 years in a Big 6 consulting role, 2 different firms. And then I spent 18 years with a company that was the largest market research firm in the world. And I spent 12 of those 18 years at this really tall beverage company building downtown. So,
okay. All right.
So she said that 2 characteristics about me. Number one was customer service, and that's true. I'd never been in any kind of manufacturing operations role. It was always service.
Right.
Number 2 was very involved in the community, very involved in my church, coaching youth baseball, on the board of directors of youth baseball, and a handful of other things. So based on those 2 characteristics, she came back to me with 3 different potential franchise options. And the first one was Honest1 Auto Care.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we got down that path.
And so what were some of the others? So were they
one of them was One of them was a health food store, kind of a niche health food retail outlet, and then one of them was a B2B small business consulting type organization.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and it is interesting when you think about some of those backgrounds, what you're delivering. So let's say you're in a big six consulting firm and you're delivering accounting or whatever. It's often more about something else, like managing the relationship.
Absolutely.
It's there's so much.
That's 100% true. Well, no, it's 100% true, but it's in my business, auto repair.
Yeah.
It's about that relationship. It's about that customer service. And so, 6.5 years later, I have data to prove that. I have experiences to prove that, it's how you treat customers. It's that relationship that you build. It's getting to know them personally. It's not about fixing their car.
Yeah. So are you married?
I am.
Okay. And so you tell your wife, hey, I'm leaving the big job and I'm going to go. How did that go?
I wish I could capture the picture.
And by the way, we're going to do auto care.
Yeah. So she and a lot of my friends and colleagues thought I was crazy. What the heck do you know about auto repair? And the answer was nothing. But
Right.
I know a lot about customer service and I know a lot about marketing. And so those are sort of the elements that I brought to the auto repair business. I think I probably, with her, I don't think it was as obvious to her how unhappy I was in corporate America. I was not downsized or outsourced or reorganized. All that kind of stuff was going on, but it never really impacted me personally. I didn't like going to work every day.
Yeah.
And I joked with a friend of mine one time. I said, I wish we sold widgets for a living. And I had a contract. I managed a relationship with a large customer, and we had a $6 million contract, and I had to then sell another $1 million on top of that. And we did so, but it was so painful. I mean, it would be 6 months, 9 months, a year long sales cycle, and then 3 or 4 or 5 months to deliver this $1 million piece of software, $500,000 piece of software, and you'd present the analysis to the customer, the chief marketing officer, the president, whomever it was, and they just kind of shrugged their shoulders.
Right.
Okay, yeah. And there was no satisfaction in that for me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to sell a widget, and it turned out, as I went down this path, my widget is you come in and your car doesn't work, and at the end of the day, we fixed it. It's not high tech, it's not glamorous and sexy, but it's a...
Well, and it's incremental, because some of those other projects, because I've been in those situations too, where you do something and you work on it for 6 to 9 months, and then the project gets canceled or no one cared, and you've poured yourself into it, right?
Yeah.
There's a little satisfaction in that. You came in, you did something, I got a little money off of it, and it was incremental that way, and you left happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my, so that's my widget story. I mean, I feel like that's what we sell now, or, a version of a pretty easy widget.
So getting into it, did it just feel like was the franchise thing fit like a glove for you because you'd been in corporate America and it had the structure, or was that something you had to get used to? Talk to me about the beginning of that.
Yeah. Certainly there's a lot of structure and procedures and training and all that. My thing is I don't know anything about auto repair.
Right. Then you and I are, because I told you before we started this interview, I said, I'm not sure, because when I buy a car, I ask them where the engine is.
Yeah.
So I know where to put the hood.
It could be a Volkswagen or a Porsche.
Right.
They put them in the back.
Right. I'm like, I just need to be able to raise the hood if there's a problem and look inside there and pretend like I know something. I know nothing.
So I don't know that it fit like a glove. I mean, even though it's a franchise and I have this franchisor and there are certain things that we have to do and rules that we have to follow, for me, from day one, I have felt like I own my own business. I mean, I'm in charge. So, some franchises are probably different. For us, they've set up lots of great relationships with lots of vendors, parts vendors, marketing vendors, accountants, uniform companies, et cetera. I get favorable pricing because of that. They tell me, here's how we do things. Here's how we answer the phone. Here's how we check a customer out. And you do all that. But I have the decisions. I'm the one deciding who I buy my parts from.
Right. Okay.
Some franchise organizations, especially if it's a food kind of business, you're not making any decisions. You're just, So for me,
so you have suggestions with some autonomy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like with my particular franchise organization, I have a lot of autonomy. When you're successful and you're growing and you're paying your bills and your customer reviews are good, you got lots of autonomy.
Right.
I mean, they still...
That is true, right? It's true of employees too. Hey, as long as you're making your numbers, customers are happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's to that extent, it's not that different. But yeah, so it was different. It didn't feel like a glove because I knew nothing about auto repair.
Right.
I mean, I really didn't. And so I think a lot of people, you hear stories about people buying a franchise because they liked the product.
Yeah.
I didn't care one way or the other about car repair. So that's not the reason I bought it.
Well, and it can be dangerous. I mean, that's one of the entrepreneurial stories of going in and doing something that you love. That's why I've avoided opening a restaurant or being part of restaurants, because I love restaurants.
Sure.
I love to go out. And I'm afraid if I went and did that, which my grandfather did, he owned a bunch of them. And I think that's one of the things. When I was 9, we went to visit him and he owned a restaurant. We sat at this big table and they brought everything on the menu to us. I mean, how can you impress a 9-year-old any greater than that, right?
Right.
But if I got into it, I was like, well, then maybe I'll hate it, right? And to do something that's not necessarily something you treat it more like a business. You look at it as a business.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, I say, what do you do every day? And I joke, I say, I do have a corner office now. So I've got that corner office, happens to be a cinder block wall, and, you know, my window overlooks the employee break room. So it's not really, I'm not downtown overlooking the Centennial Park. But it, you know, I went to graduate school, got an MBA from Emory, and after 18 years working for the company that I went to work for, now I own my little business, and it's a small business, but I'm now in that corner office, and I'm the chief operating officer, the chief accounting officer, the chief financial officer, and so my day is kind of applying. It dawned on me early on. I was like, wow, I'm actually using some of that stuff I learned in grad school.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
At a smaller scale, but.
Yeah. So starting out, I mean, did you open the door and you had like customers immediately, or was the marketing piece? How did you get people to start coming to you? And they're making a choice of coming to you sometimes over like maybe going to the dealership or other places too. Yeah.
Well, that's part of buying the franchise is you're buying all the, you know, the marketing guidance and advice and rules and stuff like that. So, yeah, I remember we opened up on April 6, 2011, and we opened at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was there at 5 or 5:30. I was probably up all night. And I remember thinking, what if nobody comes? What if nobody comes? What if nobody comes? And we'd spent a bunch of money on marketing. We did a bunch of direct mail. We weren't in business long enough to have much of an internet presence, so we did a lot of direct mail. And sure enough, I'll never forget the name. Maybe he's listening. Tyler Tobin was customer number 1. I mean, you see those businesses that put their first dollar bill. For years, I had Tyler's invoice on the bulletin board in my office, and you know, it just grows from there. I mean, certainly our first year in business, we did, you know, $450,000 or $475,000, and I felt like we were busy.
Right.
Now we're doing 4 times that, and we're having a really slow week. So it's ups and downs and changes and comes and goes. But you know, you follow a process. You learn from people who have done it before. You take their advice. You implement it. You go. And you know, certainly we made some mistakes along the way, but it's worked out pretty well.
And that secondary knowledge of thinking something's busy, and then all of a sudden when you get really good at it, then you're like, no, we're not busy. You know, it's just about doing it the first times that it seems like it's hard.
Yeah, well, I remember I got a text from my brother late in the day on that first day, and he said, how's it going? And my response to him was, oh my God, it's crazy. And I look back, we did nine cars and $975. So
and today you wouldn't be happy with that.
Well, no, today it's, you know, it's very different. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, well, we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about you've done that, and then you've also got a little bit of you've done some side work too as it relates to this. So as it relates
it's related, very related.
Very related. Yeah, and why you decided to do that, if that was a plan from the beginning or came on later. So I'm talking with Dennis Eidson. He is the owner of Honest1 Auto Care of Roswell. I'm Eric Holtzclaw. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. We'll be back in just a minute. Congratulations, you're your own boss. Now comes the hard part. It's not just about starting a business, it's about successfully managing and growing that business to an eventual exit. And along that entrepreneurial journey, you're going to run into questions and problems that you need quick answers to. Things like, do you need a business plan? How do you read a balance sheet? How do you talk to an investor? When do you bring on a founder? Or what if you're having problems with your partner? These are the types of things that you run into as you're trying to grow that business to the next level, and they may not be the things you want to share in public with other people. They're the problems and issues that arise that, as I have experienced along my own entrepreneurial journey, that I needed to have someone I could trust to reach out to and have a conversation and get a different perspective. And it was often those short conversations that would be the thing that moved me from where I was to where I needed to be. It's for that reason I created the On-Demand CXO product offering. On-Demand CXO is something that you can use to have a conversation with a trusted advisor about what's going on in your business. We do a 1-hour phone call to talk about your business, talk about your objectives, and understand what it's going to take to move you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. From there, you have ongoing access to a Slack channel to ask me questions in private about what's going on in your business so that I can provide some advice or connections to my network to individuals who can help you solve against that problem. You will also have access to my Facebook page, which is full of other entrepreneurs who are along the same journey, to have more broad conversations, things that you trust and would talk about in a networking event. But when you need to go and have that conversation with a trusted advisor, you will have the ability to have a conversation with me in a place that's safe, completely anonymous, and unbiased. I want to see you succeed and build your very best business.
And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We're talking today with Dennis Eidson. He's the owner of Honest1 Auto Care of Roswell. And as we were leaving, I was talking about, you shared with me right before we started on the show that you're doing your franchise, but you've also moved into some helping start franchises in the area?
Well, I'm the regional developer for Honest1 in Metro Atlanta.
Got it.
And so what does that mean?
It's
my job to sell more franchises in Metro Atlanta to other entrepreneurs to build the brand in Atlanta.
So was that a decision at the beginning, or is that something that happened later? Like, how did that part of the
it was a decision at the beginning.
Okay.
So I started off.
Well, you've got the sales background, so that makes a little sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do a bit of a sales background, but a different kind of sales. You know, I mean, I was selling stuff to people who already were paying me millions of dollars to be there in the first place. So it wasn't a hardcore. I mean, you know, there were some easier sales than others, but yeah. So and for me, it's worked well. We've got 2 more stores in Atlanta. I'm usually talking to 2 or 3 other potential entrepreneurs that are interested in buying a franchise as well. But for me, what I learned about myself is I was so focused on that customer service aspect of my shop, and so focused on going from that $475,000 in the first year, which, by the way, felt good. And growing it to where we're at today, I didn't put the time and energy and focus on selling more stores, and so that's sort of a second aspect of the business.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. To be successful, you would need to focus on that first one. At least I say the first 1,000 days. It's the first 1,000 days, the way you know things are running, you understand it, that becomes second nature. Then you can start to think about a branching and some of the other stuff.
Right. Yeah. I don't, and I know people that own 5 and 6 and 7 auto repair shops.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny. I was getting my hair cut last night, believe it or not. And and the woman I asked, I was at a Great Clips, and I said to the lady, I said, "Now, does the owner ever come in here much?" And she said, "Yeah, Mr. So-and-so and his son and his son-in-law and his daughter and this." I said, "Well, how many of these stores does he own?" And she said, "I think 31.
Oh, wow.
So I've learned a lot about myself. I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could own 5 or 6 because I think my employees like me. I think they think I'm a good guy. I don't think they think I'm a micromanager. But I can't imagine having that broad an organization and being able to have it run the way you want it run. I think you'd have to sacrifice some of the things that are important to me in order to own that larger entity.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I talked at the beginning with you about the entrepreneurial style quiz that I have on my site, and so that you're a visionary, you're an implementer, an operator, and you're classically operator because operators like to impact a local environment. They like to know their customers. They want to live in that space. They're that person you go to that recognizes you when you walk in. They remember the last time you were there.
Oh, that's me. Yeah. That's 100% me. And one of the things I've told people that really surprised me, or was sort of an unusual, didn't anticipate it, was I live in Roswell. I've lived in Roswell 24 years. My shop is in Roswell. I go to church in Roswell. I shop in Roswell. I mean, I can't go anywhere without running into customers.
Right.
And it's you got to be good. You got to be proud of what you do, because you're going to see at Publix and at Home
Makes it
Depot.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So it's challenges. It sounds like, I mean, you opened the doors. You had 9 customers. If I opened the doors and had 9 customers the first, I'd be happy too.
I knew most of them.
Okay. All right.
A couple of them might have had the same last name as me.
Okay. All right.
But,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always challenges. When people ask me what's the biggest mistake that you made, I think that we erred on the side of caution in terms of people come into our shop and they come in for an oil change, and the car's on average is going to be an 11 or 12-year-old car. And part of what we do is we inspect that vehicle. We look at look at the brakes, we look at the belts, we look at anything on the car. We also look at what does the manufacturer recommend. How often should they be changing the transmission fluid? How often should they be changing, the timing belt, the tune-up, whatever it might be. And I think we erred on the side of we didn't want to be pushy. We didn't want to be over the top salesy.
Right.
And so in that first year, we grew, we were successful. But I would guess that we probably left $150,000, $200,000 of revenue on the table that we didn't ever even say to the customer, oh, by the way, your car's due for a tune-up.
Yeah.
And part of that, it's a tough balance, because once we got to the point where we have a very loyal customer base, if a customer comes in now and we say, hey, you're due for a tune-up, they say, okay, go ahead and do it. And so I think we could have been a little more aggressive. And I don't want that word to sound negative, but I think
it's very valid.
It's the model. How does a car? Every car has issues that need to be fixed. Every car has maintenance items that need to be taken care of.
Well, and personal experience this year, I've taken a car in twice for regular maintenance. So I've taken it in when it asked to be taken in, and a week later had to bring it in to have something else fixed.
Yeah,
and that's way more annoying to me. Because they could have checked for some of the things, I'm like, seriously, like, I don't mind having brought it in the first time. I really mind having brought it in the second time.
Well, and that's one of the things about this business that is frustrating for customers, but it happens.
Yeah,
I mean, I had a guy in this morning who's a very good friend, brings us lots of cars, and he was saying that he just drove his son to Baton Rouge, dropped him off at college, and he had just spent $1,500 on work with us on a 17-year-old car. And he goes,
we say mine's not a 17-year-old.
He goes, everything was great, and then we got to Baton Rouge, and it needs a new alternator.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way for me to predict the alternator's going to go bad when we did the $1,700 worth of work that we had just done. So that happens. It happens every day. People, you're the last one that touched it. It's your fault.
Right.
No, unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah.
The good news is we have such a loyal customer base right now. 80% of our revenues, or probably 75% of our revenue, is from repeat customers, and very few people think that we're trying to rip them off.
Oh yeah, well, it's that whole proactive. Like for me, I don't know anything about them, so I'm bringing it in and saying, trust you, have no idea. Like, hope you fix it and tell me what it is, and when you tell me, I'm going to have you fix it. So I don't want to end up on the side of the road somewhere. Would not be good. So I'm thinking about the sort of how people. And I think you and I were talking about this off air, talking about the concept of when people start to come to you, when maybe versus going to a dealership. Like, what's that transition? Is there's this inflection point where someone is ripe for you to pick them up as a customer?
Yeah. So for years, we've had customers that will come in and say, we'll stop seeing the customer, and then they'll come 2 years later. They come back in, and it's like, I got a new car. The car was under warranty, so I've been taking my car to the dealership, or Toyota's giving me free oil changes for 2 years, so I'm going to get my oil changes done there. So we've known for years that once cars are out of warranty, people hate to go to the dealership, and I could tell you 1,000 stories. But what I was telling you earlier is that I just had a conversation with a guy who works for the Ford Motor Company. His job with Ford is to support 400 small Ford dealerships around the Southeast. And helping those dealerships do better in their service department. How do they grow their service departments, make them more profitable? And he shared with me a number and a term that I'd never heard before. And he said at Ford we call it the cliff. And the cliff is when a car goes out of warranty, 70% of their customers go away.
Oh, wow.
At Ford. So 70% after it's out of that 3-year warranty fall off the cliff. And he said that's pretty standard for, other than BMW, Mercedes, probably some higher end German vehicles. We don't see a whole lot of Rolls Royces. I assume they still take those to the dealership.
Yeah.
But for Toyotas and Hondas and Chevrolets and everybody else, 70% of their customers leave the dealership when they get past that warranty period and they come to places like me.
Got it. Got it. And so as you're thinking about things that have worked from a growth perspective, I have two questions. So marketing, because when I talk with small businesses, like, what has worked for you? Has it been direct mail? Is it SEO or social media?
Yeah.
Is it what's worked?
So brand new shop, it was direct mail. I mean, and I spent a lot of money on direct mail for 6 years. I mean, and I've really kind of cut it back this year. And the good news is I'm not seeing it impact me. But as a brand new shop and nobody knows you, there's no internet presence, there are no Google reviews. We did a lot of direct mail.
Okay.
You know, there's some direct mails that I think are great, and there's one in particular that works with auto repair shops all over the country, and they do a huge 8x11, not that big, but 6x11 postcard, and, you know, got my family's picture on it. It's beautiful, and we do 19,000 of those a month.
Oh, wow.
To our 3-mile radius. And you had to do that at the beginning. As we've gotten better, as we've gotten a reputation, probably a third of my business came from those postcards. A third of it comes from the internet, and that's, you know, Angie's List, that's Yelp, that's Google, that's all the different things on the internet. And then a third of it's going to come from referrals, you know, customers, hey, so-and-so sent me here.
And so what's your advice to a business owner like you that, you know, there's a lot of people who rely on those reviews,
Mm-hmm.
and it's easy to get a bad review because someone will come in and give you, but it's harder to get a good review because it's just, you've got to incent somebody to go do that, you know.
Sure.
So when you get, what do you do? Like, what's your approach to a bad review?
Well, you take a deep breath, and I mean, certainly we get some bad reviews where the customer probably had a legitimate concern. We've gotten some bad reviews where you just want to punch them. I mean,
right.
We had a guy, you know,
because they can say anything.
Yeah, and so, you know, you have to take a deep breath. And some feedback we've gotten from the customers over the years was, I love how you respond to your negative reviews.
Got it.
It's like how
So you do respond.
I do. I don't obsess over it like I probably did early on.
Yeah.
I mean, so there may be a bad review for me right now sitting out there somewhere that I don't know about because I'm not obsessed by it.
Right.
But you do respond, and you know, you try to be. You're always polite and professional. In some cases, I'll be apologetic on the review. Not often, because a lot of these are not very legitimate.
Right.
You know, we had a guy complain that we didn't test drive his car until after we had replaced his brakes. That's correct. When you need brakes, it's hard for us to test drive the car and look at anything else. So,
Yeah.
but you know, I want to make my review. My response oftentimes will make it clear to anyone who's reading it. Yeah, they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back and tell everybody how wonderful we are and accuse the customer of being wrong. But I mean, there's just some things that people say that aren't good.
Well, and I owned a research firm for a long time, and when we did studies on reviews, there was a legitimacy when there were some that were negative and some that were positive. There can't be one way or the other. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I've seen shops that, you know, have 5-star reviews and, you know,
nothing negative. Yeah.
Right.
So future for you, are you like, is this it? I'm going to be the Honest1 Auto Care guy? Like, this is your thing, or is there some other stuff you're thinking about doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, back to that operator mentality. I mean, we're growing, we're making more money, we're getting bigger and bigger. I never stop. There's always 100 things to do to continue to improve, continue to get better. So I never lose focus on that. But I am talking to a lot of entrepreneurs. We just opened our third shop in Johns Creek, Swanee. In the first month it was open, it's the highest volume Honest1 Care in the country. Awesome. out of 65 or so that are open right now.
That's fantastic.
So, you know, my future growth is going to come from bringing in additional entrepreneurs to open up those additional stores. And so that's really my, you know, focus over the next 3 years.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
Such a great story. I love it. It's really a kick the cube. I talk with people kicking the cube. You know, they want to get out of the cube and go do something, build their best business. And you've got a great kick the cube, build your best business story. I've been talking with Dennis Eidson. He's the owner of Honest1 Auto Care of Roswell. Eric Holtzclaw. You can find a video on my Facebook page, or you can also find it on iTunes and download it and listen to it at your pleasure. And until next time, what are you going to do to build your best business?